now I'll call on the ranking member DeSaulnier for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses and Ms. Mann and Ms. Rubenstein. As a very pro-labor person and as someone who was a member of the Teamsters and the AFL-CIO, I am appalled at what happened to you, and I would love to discuss it individually if you'd care to. Mr. McCartin, I could spend more than 5 minutes, we'll talk later, but the history, as Santayana said, for those who forget history, they're condemned to repeat it. This is a pattern. So if we want to talk about unions as a countervailing institution, I'm particularly interested. I have a chart I use regularly at town halls reflecting what you said about union membership and opportunity in this country in the middle class. They track evenly. Samuel Gompers, I have talked about this just because as someone who loves Teddy Roosevelt, their Gompers showing Teddy Roosevelt the tenements not far from his house as a son of privilege, and that instance where Roosevelt switched from being a Harvard son of this caste system in America to understanding what it was like to live in those kind of environments and how that changed the American Union movement. So talk a little bit about, we could easily be having a hearing right now, with all due respect, about the business community and anti-Semitism in corporate boardrooms. But let's talk about the context of why unions are important for equality. Could you give us a little framework on why it's so important and how people like Samuel Gompers, not just him, and you alluded to this in your, you didn't allude to it, you mentioned it in your opening comments, that they were part of the fabric of creating a strong middle class. And without them, Jewish Americans and the labor movement, we wouldn't have had the American middle class that now is under attack again. We're at the second coming of the Gilded Age, which created that moment of history in southern Manhattan when Gompers took Teddy Roosevelt to the cigar manufacturers.
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, what unions did is they brought diverse workers together to give them bargaining power. And that is what built the middle class that you're talking about. To do that, they had to bring diverse people together to do it. They often faced being caricatured in the way we've heard today as they attempted to do that. For example, the idea of unions as an outside agitator. Samuel Gompers was often called that. The idea that unions are somehow disconnected, that they are union bosses. You know, it's been a lot of energy talking about the United Electrical Workers here today. Mr. Rubenstein, Mr. Taubman, together had 255 pages of testimony about the UE. Not once in those 255 pages did the name Carl Rosen appear. Who is Carl Rosen? He's the son of a Jewish worker. He leads that union now, and he's being attacked here as a supporter of Hamas. I would urge anybody in this committee to go to the website of the United Electrical Workers and see if they endorse and embrace Hamas. Since Samuel Gompers' time, and you will find that they don't, since Samuel Gompers' time, this is the kind of attack labor has faced. Mr. Taubman has told you, for 43 years he's fought unions. He says, these unions are not your father's labor unions. He didn't like our father's labor unions either. He was fighting them 43 years ago. Then he might not have been talking about anti-Semitism, now he is. At the very moment that he's bringing these cases forward, he's also bringing another case forward at Cornell of a student who's not alleging anti-Semitism at all, but just does not believe that they should be in a graduate student union. Mr. Taubman at one point said that Samuel Gompers said unions ought to be voluntary. Samuel Gompers might have, if you pull that out of context somewhere, said something like that, but he fought his whole life for the idea of a union shop being a very American thing. That was what he was dedicated to. And so to portray him in this way, to caricature him, and to caricature so many of the people we've heard caricatured here, it breaks faith with that image you're talking about, Congressman, of Gompers enlightening Roosevelt. We need a little bit more of that kind of enlightenment, I would say.
I just conclude by the observation of somebody who's a proud California, and the fourth largest economy in the world, that is very strongly union. Over 65% of the U.S. GDP comes from states that aren't right-to-work states. I yield back.